the Minerals Council of South Africa wants Transnet executives, including the CEO, that's the Group CEO Portia Derby, to be axed. Now, the council is accusing the two leaders of allowing the bad operational performance at the parastatal. The situation is now affecting mining companies operating in the country. Joining us now is Mesela Nhlapo, Chief Executive Officer at African Rail Industry Association. Ms. Nhlapo, thank you very much for your time this morning, and good to have you in studio. Where does ARIA, that's the African Rail Industry Association for short, where do you stand on these calls for the Group CEO at Transnet to be shown the door?
Maybe if I can cover who we are. We are an industry body, but we are also an export council that is supported and funded by the DTIC to grow the local industry, and then we can export. We also have an MOU as the only body that represent industry with DOT. So all queries that come through DOT, they go through ARIA. We have an MOU with the Railway Safety Regulator, and we work with the Transport Education Training and Authority. And I think that is important to state what we do and to inform the information that we're going to share. The Minerals Council, they work closely with the Group CEO and the CEO of TFR. So we are not in a position to say yes, they must be axed or not. And I think we will look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. To educate the South African public where we are, to say to Jabulani, if they don't work, why they don't work.
All right. So you perhaps are more interested in looking at the numbers. All right. I'm happy for you to tell us that, because what the Minerals Council seems to suggest is that over the last 24 months that Portia Derby and her team have been on the job, it has been, to use their words, quote unquote, catastrophic. And that's why they are of the view that there simply needs to be an urgent change at the institution. And the word urgent is contained in this leaked letter that was seen by the newspaper which reported this Business Day.
Yes, the numbers don't lie. The 2022 financial statements, we told South Africa that Transnet is on the brink of collapse. We told everybody, and I think they didn't believe us. Now it's happening, and you see it. If you go to service your car and you don't find a part, just know that it's stuck at the port because Transnet cannot, particularly during the strike. And I think it's important to note that this is the first strike in 10 years. In 10 years. This is the first time in history that Transnet is being bailed out. Now, those are facts, are not my opinion. So we should have a graph on the screen.
We did show those numbers.
So the numbers are quite important to show that there is that decline. We are not talking about Portia, we're not talking about Sizagele, we're talking about Transnet. Leadership is very important, and I believe that leadership is action. If we don't act and act in the best interest of the company, yes, catastrophic, that will be the word.
I'm going to use your exact same words. Transnet is on the brink of collapse. Who does the buck stop with?
The shareholder. There is the CEO, there is the board, there is the director general, there's the minister. So if things fall apart, that line of command, they cannot claim that they didn't know.
So the CEO must stay the course, even though things are falling apart. And by the way, it's not just Portia Derby. You mentioned Sizakele Mzimela. That's the person who heads the freight rail division of Transnet. She's also included in this. Are you still suggesting that government is to be blamed here for what the shareholder will probably say, but the CEO should perform? If the CEO is not performing, then the board must be shown the door if they are incapable of holding the CEO accountable?
That's as simple as that. The board must be held accountable. If the situation gets worse, then we should ask, where was the board? But what is also important is that how the board is constituted. Because if you have serial board members that do not have and understand the railway industry, you are most likely to have the railway industry going where it is. If you appoint a CEO at TFR that comes from another state-owned entities that while she was there, it collapsed. But then we want to bring the same person to TFR. So we knew that comes from collapse. When this collapse is taking place, it's should it really be a surprise? Let's get people, the rail men and women. I don't care if it's Umpit with his N6. As long as Umpit does the job, as long as Lavini does the job and get the trains running, that is the most important thing. Action.
Oftentimes, we have heard from government representatives, government ministers, saying state institutions or parastatals like Eskom, Transnet, they have been the site of state capture. Do you believe that state capture has had a big role to play here, or is state capture not to blame? It's got to do with the operations and the people at the helm.
Okay. I'd like to address the state capture. I'm not a politician. It has been termed the way that it has been termed, but this is what we know. The industry has been seriously being compromised, whether it's state capture or whether it's the leadership that is not doing what they're supposed to do, but the industry has been severely. Companies have closed down. Companies are surviving on exports, and those are big companies. Small companies, the gains that we have had from BEE, we're losing them. Why? It's because parastatals, and Transnet in this case, hates business. And here, let me support that.
Hates which business? Because
hates business.
In general?
In general.
Okay.
You're compromising the mining sector. How much does the mining sector contribute to the GDP?
Massive amounts.
Okay. So would you say that we are loving the mining sector?
Well,
okay.
No, which is why we're talking.
The automotive sector, Ford has invested in the country, and under a certain promises that they will get a service. They're not getting it. Do they love Ford? Do they have the best interests of Ford at heart? Agriculture, the food that has to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have food, no where to blame. It's not government. It's individuals within government. And I think that also as a society, we need to take responsibility. When we need to protect our assets. Transnet is not a family business. We need to make sure that Transnet works, and we are going to make sure that it works. This year, we're declaring it as the year of third-party access.
Let's talk about solutions. The Minerals Council is saying the following in order to bring about some stability, and I quote now, they want to parachute in real capacity to assist in resolving the short-term crisis issues. Do you believe that this is the route?
Wouldn't be us looking at state capture when we parachute people because you have a problem. Due process must be followed to bring in the right people. That some actually left because of the new management. I remember in one article where the employees were offered voluntary severance packages. There's been a brain drain. And it was stated that those that are not emotionally engaged at Transnet, they can go. There was no handover in some instances. In some instances, you go to a depot, the people that you deal with, they left yesterday, and you didn't know about it. So the problems cannot be sorted out by the Minerals Council. It must be sorted out through proper channels, because if we start parachuting people into this, then the Mining Council will be owning Transnet.
I think you make very good points. Let's conclude the conversation with what you have mentioned here, and it obviously sends alarm bells, and that is that this company is on the brink of collapse. I want to conclude once again by looking back at what the Minerals Council has said through this letter, which has been leaked. And they're saying that they are concerned about the possibility of this parastatal, Transnet, being placed into liquidation. If not, if they don't go the route of liquidation, then they're saying there is a very real possibility that the company could be sued for trading recklessly.
We actually want to make a statement to the Auditor General to look at Transnet financials, because they're putting a beautiful makeup like I look today. And if I'm running away from breaching the covenant and re-evaluate property, and then I claim a 5 billion profit. The unions are within their rights. You as the employer, you said, no, now I've made money. We've made 5 billion. But it's not 5 billion in the pocket, you know. And even now, they declare a profit. How can you declare the profit when the mining industry, the backbone of the GDP of this country, is saying that bizarre decisions have been made? But I want to go back to state capture. When you understand the railway business and you look at that contract in its entirety, with all the risk that is concerned with that contract, there are companies that have equipment lying around in their warehouses that they were supposed to supply to the Chinese. The local content part, it's our money. It cannot create work in China or anywhere else. Because Mazamini must benefit from this contract because it's Kolotosaki. And lastly, on the 1064, if I know the business, I know that I have so many locomotives and I need to serve my client, and my client needs to be serviced, I could have made it a different decision. It could have negotiated better. The reason we're in this crisis is because of the bizarre decisions that were taken by the leadership at Transnet.
And yet at the same time you are non-committal on whether or not they should keep their jobs. Isn't that bizarre from you?
Nope, it's not bizarre. The numbers don't lie. It's not up to me to say they stay or they go. Right. If Transnet is failing, you need to get new leadership, and then get new leadership. But parachuting people, we are calling, we're inviting for another Zondo commission.
All right. That's Mesela Nhlapo. She is CEO of the African Rail Industry Association. And we are going to be